Veronica presents the AI Repertory Theatre's production of Dan Turner, Hollywood Detective, in Part 2 of Drunk, Disorderly and Dead by Robert Leslie Bellem. Chapter 4. The Real Truth.
I woke up in Hollywood Precinct Emergency Ward. Dave Donaldson was leaning over me.
It's damned near time.
My chest felt as if a locomotive had hit it. I was all wound up in yards of adhesive tape. My left lung felt like one great big bruise. But I knew I was alive. Heaven didn't contain any Donaldson-type angels. I squinted up at him. Where were you when the thunderbolt struck?
So, you're ready to talk. That's fine. You're going to need a lot of words to get you out of this mess.
I tried sitting up, found I could manage it. What am I doing here? And why am I alive?
You're here because when I went to your apartment, I discovered you laid out on the living room rug with a neat little bullet hole in your lapel. I brought you in for first aid. And you're alive because you happened to be wearing a shoulder-rigged gat when somebody tossed a .22 pill at you. Your rod stopped the slug. Barring a black and blue chest, you'll pull through. Now, who tried to ventilate you?
Skip that for a minute. I want to know if you got Rhoda Ashworth's corpse out of my jalopy.
Sure. And I just received a stomach contents analysis from the coroner's toxicologist.
Donaldson shoved his beefy puss close to mine.
Why did you poison the Ashworth bim?
I slid my dogs over the side of the bed and yelped. Did you say poison?
Yeah, I said poison. The report calls it Gelsemium rhizome, whatever that is. What made you do it, Philo? You must have been off your damn trolley.
Off my trolley, hell. I didn't croak that wren, you crazy ape. Then there flashed through my think tank a fleeting picture of bejeweled white fingers. Ideas meshed and clicked. I didn't do it, but I bet I know who did. And maybe there's another corpse ready for harvesting right this instant.
Whose?
Walt Ashworth. Listen.
I knew your brain would crack someday, Snoop. Walt Ashworth was alive enough 15 minutes ago when he came down here to identify his wife's body. He was sick as a horse, but that was hangover and shock. We sent him back home.
This tidbit of information stopped me for an instant. It didn't quite line up with my theories. Just the same, I figured I was on the right track. Ashworth's survival was an accident. It had to be. Let me out of here. I've got things to do.
You'll stay put. Or didn't you realize you're in custody on suspicion of murder?
I hated to biff him. He's a friend of mine. But sometimes he gets nutty notions. And this was one of the times. By holding me, he was allowing a murderer to run loose. Closing a case that was as wide open as the mouth of a coal mine, so I whapped him. His teeth clicked together. He fell across the bed. I pelted to a closet, found my threads and climbed into them. Then I opened the hospital room's window, wafted myself outward into the night. I started running. At the next corner, I hailed a cruising hack, gave the cabbie the Rampart Street address of Dahlia Mannerling, the blonde columnist. From now on, I had to work fast. I'd cold-cocked 2 minions of the law's majesty. I was under the gun for Rhoda Ashworth's kill. Unless I fastened the elbow on the genuine bumper offer, I was a gone goose. The Mannerling skirt lived in a pretentious 2-story dump that spelled prosperity in italics. I went to the door, kicked a few blisters on it. A hulking slug in butler's uniform opened up for me after the 3rd kick. I tabbed him from his general outlines. He was the bozo who had worn chauffeur's garb and a mask earlier that evening, the one who'd caressed my cranium with a cannon. I said, "So you also buttle," and I bashed him a loony full in the kisser. He folded. That put me even with him. I leaped over his sprawled bulk, took to the staircase. An upstairs door opened and Dahlia Mannerling said,
"What's all the commotion?"
"The name's Turner, and I'm about to raise the lid off hell." I put my 2 palms on her chest and shoved. She staggered backward into a rose-tinted boudoir. She was wearing a nightie and a negligee, both thinner than the tissue of a Christmas present, and what I saw through gossamer silk made me forget the pain in my bruised chest. How could a guy think of his own bosom when he had a chance to cop a swivel at Dahlia's? She was like a Viking goddess straight from Valhalla. Her long yellow hair cascaded to her waist. The swelling flare of her hips melting into gorgeous white thighs and tapered stems gave me a sudden attack of the speechless jitters. She backed away from me as I ankled over her bedroom threshold.
This is going to take some explaining.
The words might have carried more threat if her voice hadn't quavered quite so much. I moved in on her. Sister, you spoke a spoonful. Do you smoke?
Why, yes.
You aren't going to like the taste of cyanide fumes in the gas house. It won't be like Turkish tobacco. Considerable color departed from her peaches and cream cheeks.
Are you crazy or just drunk?
I'm neither. I just happen to be accusing you of kidnapping and murder, both of which are punishable by death in this neck of the forest. Her diamond-studded fingers went to her kisser. Her peepers bulged.
My God, you don't think I
dug my fingers into her snowy shoulders. I think you croaked Rhoda Ashworth. Yes, you and Gordon Maxim.
But that's insane. It's...
Sure, you're going to claim it was accidental. I'm afraid that won't wash, baby. Listen, the way I added up, Maxim was worried because Rhoda was getting drunk too often in public. It threatened to ruin her as a star, which would wipe out the investment he had in her.
Of course Mr. Maxim was concerned. Who wouldn't be under those circumstances?
Being concerned, Maxim made up his mind to do something about it. He blamed Rhoda's drunkenness on her husband. He figured Walt was dragging her down to the gutter. If he could remove Walt from the picture, Rhoda might reform. She sucked in a deep, quivery breath that arched out her loveliness.
No, Gordon Maxim never even considered Walt Ashworth as the cause of...
Clam up, sister. I'm doing the gabbing. Maxim determined to bump Walt Ashworth, so he put some poison in a bottle of rye and sent it over to Walt's table with his compliments.
Poison? So that's what was wrong with Rhoda.
The blonde quail tried to bite back the words, but it was too late. So you know there was something wrong with her. She skipped that.
Listen, Mr. Turner, Dan, it's true Mr. Maxim sent Ashworth some whiskey, but it wasn't poisoned. It couldn't have been. We'd both had a drink out of that bottle before we sent it.
If you interrupt me again, I'll feed you a clap across the mush. I say the whiskey was poisoned. Walt started to drink a dollop of it. Just then Rhoda snatched the glass out of his hand, downed the snort herself. She nodded. So that scared the living bejaspers out of Gordon Maxim. He wanted to get Rhoda out of the cafe, fast. He wanted to administer a quick antidote before it was too late. His scheme had backfired. His poison had gone down the wrong hatch. That was why you and he offered to take Rhoda home.
No, that wasn't our reason.
I stung her across the puss with my left palm. My fingers put red prints on the whiteness of her cheek. When Rhoda refused to go with you, things looked bad. You and Maxim blew the joint, got into your limousine. When I brought Rhoda to my jalopy and started for Malibu with her, you followed. You jammed me off the road, put the snatch on her. Unfortunately, she kicked the bucket while you were taking her to a doctor. I stared into Dahlia's widened optics. Am I right?
Only partially. You've got the truth so twisted around that... Why, you really could send me to prison.
Fear sent tremors through her. I could see her flesh rippling. Then, all of a sudden, she wrapped her arms around my neck and jammed herself against me.
You can't arrest me. You can't.
Why can't I?
Because I'm going to make you listen to the real truth.
Then she mashed her parted lips to my startled mouth.
Chapter 5. One More Dead Man.
Her kissing technique was marvelous. I'm an old osculatory expert myself, but the Mannerling number taught me some tricks I hadn't known about. She didn't kiss with her lips alone. She tossed her whole damned framework into the job. Would have had the Haze office screaming for the scissors. The succulent sweetness of her labial pressure sent steam sizzling past my epiglottis. It was like a shot of high-powered voltage crackling through my capillaries. Her nightie and negligee had somehow drifted from their anchorage to reveal a pink expanse of shoulder and arm. She moaned when I poured a kiss to the hollow of her throat.
Dan. Oh, Dan.
Well, what the hell? When a dame whimpers to me in that tone of voice, I'm human enough to listen. especially when I know that the lassie in question wouldn't come near me under ordinary conditions. Something was forcing her to do the things she was doing, something damned important. In spite of her fervor, I sensed a hidden reluctance, an undercurrent of sheer desperation. I released her before I lost the last of my self-control. "You're faking, aren't you?"
Faking?
"Yeah, putting on an act, trying to soften me up so I'll listen to what you've got to say." She caught her lower lip between her teeth.
Not only listen, I want you to believe.
I hung the swivel on her. "Okay, baby, spill your story. You've got my attention. Or anyhow, you will have when you pin that negligee together and cover the distractions." She blushed and drew the silk and lace edges shut.
In the first place, I didn't know anything about poison being in that bottle of whiskey. Neither did Gordon Maxim. In fact, there couldn't have been poison in the rye when Maxim sent it to Walt Ashworth. Maxim and I each had a drink out of the bottle beforehand.
Then why was the bottle sent to Walt?
To get him even drunker than he already was. We didn't want him to interfere when we offered to take Rhoda home. You see, Dan, we were planning to whisk Rhoda to some sanitarium, make her take the liquor cure. That was Maxim's idea, and I had agreed to help him, because I liked Rhoda. I hated to see her career spoiled. Besides, Gordon Maxim has been a good friend of mine. Rhoda represented a big investment on his part, an investment he stood to lose if she kept making a fool of herself in public.
I thumbed a match, ignited a pill. "Go on talking."
When Rhoda insisted on leaving the cafe with you, we decided on the kidnapping stunt. It's true we followed your car. My butler chauffeur was the one who did the actual snatching. I drove the limousine.
"Yeah, I know. I tabbed the rings on your fingers when your hand was on the steering wheel, but the connection didn't click in my gray matter until later. When it did click, I came right here. But go ahead with your story."
We took Rhoda away from you, started toward the beach. She was unconscious. Then suddenly, Mr. Maxim yelled at me from the limousine's tonneau where he and my chauffeur were holding Rhoda. Maxim told me she was dead.
"So you got panic-stricken and dumped her, eh?"
Yes, that was Maxim's idea. He was afraid people might accuse us of...
"Of murder." The word seemed to give her the shuddering memes.
But it wasn't murder. At least Maxim and I had nothing to do with it. We were only trying to straighten her out. Why should a movie executive kill his most promising star, a girl who meant a fortune to him?
He wouldn't. It was an accident. He was trying to bump her husband the way I figure it.
No, Dan, you're wrong. I saw that whiskey bottle being opened. I had a drink out of it. Then it was handed to that head waiter Sullivan. Oh my God.
I peered at her. "Now what?"
Tim Sullivan used to be in love with Rhoda when she was a cigarette girl at the Café La Bamba. Maybe he blamed Walt Ashworth for her drunkenness. Maybe he slipped poison into the bottle before giving it to Walt.
It might have been a good theory, except for the fact that Sullivan had later tried to gun me down. I'd already reconstructed his reason for that particular bit of vengeful skullduggery, and it didn't match up with Dahlia Mannerling's present accusation. I shook my head. "Wrong number, kiddo. But I'll hand you this much. I don't think you had anything to do with Rhoda Ashworth's untimely demise. As far as I'm concerned, you're in the clear."
Thank you, Dan.
She glided up to me, put her arms around my neck. The kiss she fed me wasn't of the passionate variety. All it contained was gratitude. But I drew a bigger bang out of it than I'd got from her previous lip work. This time, the gesture was at least genuine. I backed away from her. Another salute like that one, and I might forget my manners.
What are you going to do now?
See some suspects. And just to make sure you don't phone a warning to anybody, I believe I'll salt you down. Before she knew what was up, I unpocketed my handcuffs, fastened one around her left wrist. I attached the other bracelet to a bedpost. "You may be uncomfortable, and I'm sorry, but I know damned well you can't reach your telephone now." Then I blew her a kiss, lamb from the room. Downstairs, the butler chauffeur was still listening to the birdies. I trust him with his own galluses for safekeeping, went out to look for a night owl cab. I found one had myself ferried out to Gordon Maxim's hovel in the Miracle Mile district on Wilshire. By this time, there were extras on the street headlining my arrest and subsequent escape. Evidently, the heat was on me plenty now. I damned the cops for their numbskull mulishness. If they'd been willing to cooperate with me instead of trying to nab me, my work might have been easier. As it was, I had to play a lone hand, had to steer clear of arrest while playing it. Maybe it sounds easy, but it wasn't. Gordon Maxim was a live-alone-and-enjoy-it bachelor, with one outstanding eccentricity. He did not allow his servants to remain under the same roof with him overnight. By the time I rang his doorbell, it was pretty late. There weren't any lackeys around to let me in. The house was dark. Maxim himself didn't answer my bell blast. That struck me as queer. He wasn't a gadabout, didn't approve of staying out after midnight. It would take something damned important to keep him away from his downy couch at this hour, I thought. Then I heard a dim, persistent jingling within the joint. A phone was ringing, and nobody was answering it. On impulse, I dug out my ring of master keys, found one that worked the lock. I let myself in. My flash ray guided me to the stairs. The tinkling phone sounded from the upper floor. I followed my ears, came to a closed bedroom. When I shoved the door inward, the phone bell got louder, shriller. The instrument was alongside the bed. I started toward it. Then I froze and whispered, "What the hell?" Gordon Maxim was stretched across the bed in his pajamas. There was a Roscoe near his withered right hand and a bullet tunnel in his temple. He was deader than the proverbial chicken in a hard-boiled egg.
We hope you enjoyed AIRT's production of Dan Turner, Hollywood Detective, in Part 2 of Drunk, Disorderly, and Dead. Follow and subscribe to get early access to all of Dan Turner's cases. For even more stories, visit veronicapresents.com. You can help us grow our audience by rating and reviewing this show. Thanks for listening.